Hello, my name's Russell Lewins, and today I'd like to give another video introducing another technique that is conducive to health and well-being by directly speaking to the autonomic nervous system and helping it bring better functioning in our everyday lives. So today the topic is orienting. So I know some of you will have come across orienting as a practice, and for some people it might be very new or may have just heard a little bit about. So I'm going to give a broad introduction and background just for a few minutes, and then we're going to lead you through the simple orienting practice, and you can try how it is in your own experience. And then once I've led through the practice, I want to give just several minutes theory and background to what it is about orienting that can be powerful in helping bring better functioning to our nervous system. So as humans, we all have this deep wiring or longing for connection, to feel connected with ourselves, to feel connected to other people, and to feel connected with the world. We also have a desire or a longing, to be in expansive states, pleasurable emotional states, and to experience freedom of mind, freedom of being, free of limitations. So it's like we have this innate urge for expansion. So there's that. And then there's also this other dimension of wiring to us that is oriented towards maximizing our survival chances in life-threatening situations. That is what its original design and function was for. And that is wired into our neurology and into our physiology. So quite commonly now we talk in terms of fight, flight and freeze as responses to threatening situations. So this threat system is literally life-saving when needed. Literally makes the difference between life and death. If we have that sudden surge in energy, that means we can run that bit faster from a threat, or if we can have more aggression to fight that bit harder, it can make the difference between life and death. And the similar with the benefits in certain life-threatening scenarios of going into a more freeze state. So it's clearly valuable and integral to us. And it also has big shortfalls, and this arises because it doesn't just come online when needed. It misjudges situations, so it overreacts, bringing on fight, flight and freeze when it's not helpful, and sometimes it can underreact and not bring on fight, flight and freeze when it would be helpful. So it's an imperfect system. So, for example, like just giving like a public talk, just one example of this, that's perceived on this reptilian brain level as a threat. It can actually bring on physiological changes that actually make the task more difficult. So if we have this kind of like really sense of tight chest, we're kind of starting to sweat. The prefrontal cortex might go a bit offline, so memory, creativity may be more limited than normal. We start to feel more disconnected with people because fight, flight and freeze aren't about becoming in a state of connection with people. So that this is an example of where the system can work against us. So a key thing that I think it can be helpful to work with or to practice with is the stuckness, the way that the system can interpret a threat, take us into a physiology that's unhelpful. So we go into more contracted emotional states. Parts of us go offline that would actually be helpful if they were online. So with a more, to use the language of a resilient functioning nervous system, it has the capacity to go up into, say, fight and flight, or to fall down into freeze, and then to move out of that. So not to get bogged down and stuck in that, but to move out of that quite quickly when it's seen that it's not needed or it's unhelpful. So, like with the example of giving a public talk, on a rational level, we may know there's no need for these this kind of contraction that goes on, but on a bodily level, the body doesn't feel safe. The body feels there's a threat, and it's mobilizing itself to deal with that threat. So however much on a rational level we may know that things are safer than the body feels, on a bodily level, what can be contributing to the stuckness is there isn't a felt sense. The body doesn't sense, feel, and know safety. And in a way, all these practices that I'm gradually going to start sharing on this channel, and perspectives, are about helping the body contact on a deep level a sense of safety that can help stuckness become more oiled, so the system can come in and out of states more freely. So the practice that we're going to look at today is called orienting. So I'm just going to start to lead us through that. So it works best if you've got a chair that's doesn't kind of spin or rotate. So it's good to just have a chair that's fixed, so it doesn't move when you turn. So I'm sitting comfortably here. I'm just having a basic kind of alignment, feeling the sitting bones supported by the chair. I can feel my feet on the ground. So this is a practice that just very, very simple in a way. So just engaging our head and neck muscles, and I'm just going to slowly just allow my head and neck to just gradually turn and take in things in the room. And I'm just going to, as I do this, I'm just going to label 3 things. So there's a framed picture, there's a light switch, I'm going to turn all this way around, there's a plug, and then I'm just gradually going to come back to center. Just notice how I am in my body. So this is an example of orienting through the eyes to the perceived space that I'm in and some of its objects, and labeling them. And now I'm going to orientate internally. So internally, there's the physical sensations of the body. There might be a sense of energetically, whether it feels high or low, or moving energy, or tingling, or pulsing, pressure. There's the emotional dimension of the body, sad, dull, excited, shame, and so on. So there's these different dimensions of the body. So I can pick any of those. I'm just going to take a bit of time and just label 3 things that I can notice in real time in my body now. So I can feel the fabric of my socks. I can feel a tension just in this upper area of the chest, and I can feel the warmth of a blanket that's supporting my lower spine as I sit here in the chair. So I've oriented to 3 objects there. And then we're just going to return to the visual field, and again doing this slowly. So there's a shirt there, a green shirt. I can see the hinge in the door there, and I can see a deep green blind at the window. And then I come back to center and just sense how I am now. And I'm going to orientate internally for 3 things. So I noticed a dropping in the shoulders there. I could feel the movement of my lips there. And I noticed there's a little bit of a jittery sort of tightness in the stomach. So keep going slowly. And then again, doesn't matter which side we start on, we might just look around in the room again. And the eyes go where they want to go. And this time I can see the radiator dial. I can see a speaker. I'm really just flexing the head and neck here without moving the upper body. I can see a book on the floor there. And then coming back, and then again just noticing how I am internally. So I can feel a bit more weight and pressure into the chair. I can have a nice tingly sensation in some of the wrists, both the wrists. Yeah, and I could just feel the fabric of my shirt there as I breathed. So this is an example of orienting externally to the environment for the visual, for the eyes. And the labelling just helps us really notice, so actually registering something, recognising something. And then there's that internal sensing. So we're connecting in a way externally, and it's a process of connecting internally. Like a lot of these exercises, we're not trying to make anything happen. We're just practicing awareness, mindfulness, being present, attunement, and connection. So my invitation is to try this at home in your everyday life. And to just practice that tuning in to where your system is and what effect it might have on your system, how your system responds. So these exercises, they tend to have a propensity to help the system on a bodily level sense, feel and know safety. Sometimes for some people it may be that there's something triggered when you look around. Or when you sense inside, and if that's the case, you may want to take some care about how often or regular you do this practice, or you may decide to focus on other practices. But this can be quite a central way of helping bring safety into a felt sense of the body gradually. So it can be good to maybe try this a few times a day and just see how it is. Just see how it is for you. I really recommend, as I did there, taking it slowly, so you keep in touch with yourself. We don't move too quickly, so the system really has time to sense from its side. It's also possible that if you are in a state, if your physiology is drifting or is established in fight, flight physiology, or at the other end in freeze physiology, that you may not feel like doing these practices. There may be resistance to that. So with fight and flight, for example, it can be that you want to keep doing things. There's an impulse, there's an orientation in the system for speed, for doing things quickly, for rushing. And so there might be resistance to actually kind of just slowing down and doing this practice gradually, or even just sitting down and sitting still. So my suggestion there is to see, despite that way your system might on one level want to be rushing into activity, is to just see what it's like to sit with that resistance and then just go through the motions of this exercise: 3 out, 3 in, 3 out, 3 in. And just to see how that affects that speedy restlessness and so on. Similarly, if you're in a very flat, dull, listless state, the resistance might be different, because there it might just be that there might be some apathy or lack of motivation or wanting to use any effort. So similarly, maybe just seeing even if you're in that as well, just seeing if you can go against that resistance and just go through the motions of the exercise and see what effect it might have on that dull listlessness. I'm recording this in, whilst the UK is in lockdown, and so I know for many people, including myself, that can be conditions to spend more time on screen time. Maybe we work from home more, and we have less avenues for doing things outside, so we look more to what's in the house, and we have all these digital media here. So this can be a particularly valuable time to do orienting, because fight and flight physiology tends to kind of want to create tension in the head and neck. And if you think about it, if you're going to fight someone, the focus wants to be kind of fixed, and the peripheral vision is less important, and what's immediately in front of you becomes important. So I think one of the things with a lot of time on the screen is that it can actually kind of play into that physiology of having a tense neck and fixed gaze. And again, even with the freeze physiology, the eyes and the consciousness of the eye starts to go offline, and the head and neck can go into a kind of motionless, fixed state. So doing orienting is a more bottom-up approach. We're actually moving the head and neck as if it's outside of that physiology, and then that can send a message to the threat system that things may not be threatening, and that the survival physiology, the fight, flight and freeze, isn't needed. So it's like a bottom-up way of getting out of those more limited states when we don't need them. And then as our system moves out of fight, flight and freeze, there isn't the mobilization and limitation towards focusing on threat. The system can more just expand into its fullness. And in terms of our head, neck, eyes, visual orienting that I've been focusing on today, the tendency becomes for it to shift more to what's often called exploratory orienting. So this is where there's a natural curiosity and connection with the environment. So outside of fight, flight and freeze, it tends to be that the colours become more vivid. There is no longer this narrowing down into a fixed point or field of vision. The vision more naturally becomes more sensitive in the peripheral sense. So it's like the full capacity of the eyes is allowed to come online. And there's just a natural interest and curiosity and openness to what's around us. And as this comes online, and this spontaneously starts to arise, the system, with its desire to map itself in relation to the environment, starts to be fulfilled, and that tends to create this touch into our system and give a felt sense of safety and help sustain us in that more regulated state of being. So I've given this practice of 3 in, 3 out. It has a certain form, and you can do it in all sorts of different situations, just looking around, labelling and noticing 3 things, and then coming into the body and noticing 3 aspects of experience that you can put a label on. So we can do it as a formal practice, but it can be also very good just to do in everyday life. So if you're out walking along a street or in the park, or even in your workplace, and if you notice that you feel in a contracted or more limited state, just taking some time just to kind of see what's around you. And so we practice being in an exploratory mode, and then that helps the system find its way back to this exploratory mode. So I hope that's been interesting, and I hope you find the practice helpful. And do feel free to share any observations, insights, areas of learning in the comments section below. Take care.